Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse. Yeah, quiet calm before the storm, a lot of Chris Brown. And it's Billboard BREAKDOwn.
I don't remember.
Well, I've called episodes like that some of the least relevant episodes of this show that I've ever assembled because of the open question how much any of this will matter by next week given what's on the horizon. But hey, I'm now back from vacation and my set is modestly different. That's gotta matter somewhat, right? I mean, look, I know that the Drake show is coming and that's when the majority of folks here choose to take the week off. A little bit dispiriting given all the work I put in, but I get it. But let's have a brief reprieve. Even if that means more Chris Brown than anyone should tolerate, but I am getting ahead of myself. The top 10, where Choosing Texas by Ella Langley is still holding that number 1, and by all projections, not for very much longer. Coasting on streaming and whatever radio is left, not counting Nashville, it's gonna hold its own thanks to that streaming and probably not be forced out of the top 10, but she might be the only one. I've talked about this before with album bombs. When radio becomes that stabilizing factor for holding position as the streaming fluctuates a lot more rapidly, except for the weeks where album bombs crush everything in their path, which makes a song like Be Her by Ella Langley kind of interesting, with real gains on streaming and the singular format of country radio, but she doesn't quite have that streaming margin to really hold against the tide of Drake, so I expect her to fall back considerably, although maybe not fall out of the top 30. But where this will have more of an interesting impact are the established radio hits. So let's start off with Man I Need by Olivia Dean, up to number 3. For now. She's losing, albeit slowly, and more of her support is made up by the radio, which is even more pronounced with I Just Might by Bruno Mars at number 4, more radio and less streaming than her. They're gonna lose the streaming margin so completely, and the question will be whether or not radio is going to be enough to hold them up. And this is the worst possible timing for So Easy to Fall in Love by Olivia Dean, up to number 5. She's going to lose whatever meager streaming position she has, and radio stability is going to matter, but the question is how much. Who is really and finally in trouble is Alex Warren and Ordinary, down to number 6. A measured decline is one thing, but with the new recurrency rules, the song is gone next week, and unless Billboard pulls some holiday-related chicanery, I don't see it coming back. Good riddance. But by now we got Drop Dead by Olivia Rodrigo at number 7, which is an interesting test case of upward momentum. The radio growth is finally there, but streaming is softening a little bit. I think this will wind up falling back more than anyone's gonna like, and the question will be how much it rebounds. We're gonna have to see. There's an analogous case for our new top 10 breakthrough with Risk It All by Bruno Mars at number 8. Told you the radio is gonna love this, but streaming is also thoroughly on board. And while it's going to take positional losses, I think it'll have more of a chance of holding on once Drake recedes. What Won't is Folded by Kalani at number 9. This is holding its position thanks to radio inertia, but the scope of the album bomb will probably force recurrency, and while I'm not sure it's going to be the case for Dracula by Tame Impala featuring Jenny at number 10, given just enough radio growth, truthfully I've been befuddled by how much strength it will hold up against the margins of Drake for this song for a while, and this is going to be the break point. How many hold the streaming margin or have enough radio that it won't matter quite as much? But again, conversation for next week. We'll have to see. That naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts, which unsurprisingly, there weren't many. For now. In the latter group, we got Yukon by Justin Bieber exiting again, handily nabbing its year-end list spot for 2026, alongside Pooh Shiesty's First Day Out, which might be borderline after its second wind. And in our losers, well, outside of Runway by Lady Gaga and Doechii falling off the Return to 98, once again it's the Noah Kahan show. Given how sustainable this album bomb has been, it'll be something to watch in what songs survive against Drake's album bomb. But before we get there, Doors at 30, End of August at 49, Porchlight at 53, American Cars at 57, Dashboard at 58, Staying Still at 61, Downfall at 62, Haircut at 67, Deny at 75, Dan at 79, Paid Time Off at 81, 23 at 84, All Them Horses at 87, Lighthouse at 96, and we go way back at 97. Now we get the most inconsequential part of this week, our gains and returns. And in the latter group, well, outside of Jane by the Long Faces creeping back in 99. This is still the Michael Jackson show with Dirty Diana surging back to 44 and Rock With You at 47. Genuinely curious if these survive what Iceman is going to deliver. I get the impression probably not. Same thing for our gains, although in the case of Chris Brown getting his album Impact, I'm not exactly complaining if for a week Obvious surged up to 63 and Fallen with Leon Thomas and Tank as well, bounced off the debut to 80. The other gains are tougher to read. For one, there is a Noah Kahan song seeing some upward momentum with Orbiter at 56. One of the bonus cuts, not exactly a favorite of mine, and Lush Life by Zara Larsson is trying to live its best life at 42. Same with Brunette by Tucker Wetmore, which is seeing multiple weeks of gains up to 39 because apparently Nashville radio just adores that. That will be some insulation from falling back, but there's also trailing to Don't We by Morgan Wallen up to 52, and Hey How You Look by Josh Ross 71. Don't exactly have high expectations for any of them to survive next week, but again, Nashville radio, time will tell. But you know, speaking of Tucker Wetmore, when we're looking at a very trim list of new arrivals, number 93, Sunburn by Tucker Wetmore.
All I know is I was falling in deeper. That door said do not disturb. Yeah, you hit me like a heat wave. We stayed up all night, all day. We're scratching outside like thunder. Your body on mine like a sunburn. Your body on mine like a sunburn.
I'll be the first to say that I'm surprised that Brunette has stayed in my rotation as one of the better mainstream country songs from Nashville this year, mostly because of the galloping tempo perpetuating the whole downward spiral in the content. So naturally, Wetmore decided that he wanted to cut a song that's probably better reserved for the few times Morgan Wallen tried to make a beach song. Honestly, he's got a better track record in this territory than I think he gets credit, I'll give him that. So now hearing Tucker Wetmore double down on it, look, it's no sand in my boots. It's certainly not bright nor breezy enough to match the best of a Kenny Chesney or Jake Owen or even Florida Georgia Line, mostly because Wetmore has got nothing close to their charisma, and the mix is a little too saturated in damp reverb to feel all that warm. Honestly, a little bit more waterlogged as it slips into the cycling acoustics on that bridge, and Wetmore just sounds so frail coming back on that final hook, so unsupported. And I guess that might make sense when you consider the song is all about the beach hookup where Tucker Wetmore falls a little bit too hard and he's ultimately left behind. Again, he's gonna come up wanting against Sand in My Boots in that comparison, which is a better song, but there is enough of a slick rollick I can imagine this working. But man, the central line of Your Body on Mine Like a Sunburn, it's just way too goofy to be sold with this atmosphere. Not nearly as fun as it should be, and Wetmore can't sell it. So, not bad. Not something I return to, but if we want the true washout here, number 92, Honey Pack by Chris Brown.
Give me some Henny and a honey pack so we can wait 15 minutes, then I wanna crack so we can baby, you gon' get your money back so we can
Yeah, we got two Chris Brown songs to deal with this week. Thank God it's just two, not really much album impact. So with this being the early cut that didn't get the music video, I can't be the only one who finds this particular approach to trap more than a little dated, right? The washed out guitar around a painstakingly slow bass and trap percussion that would be decent enough production if the scratches didn't remotely fit, and Chris Brown didn't smother all of his overdubs and vocal harmonies and way too much auto-tune. Again, he is his own worst enemy on production here. But we gotta talk about lyrics because I had to look up what the honey pack is as a married man. For those of you who don't know, it's gas station dick pills. Oh no, I'm sorry, male aphrodisiacs. Because this is a song all about how he's going to fuck this girl, largely with a lot of cunnilingus. But then there's lines like, I just wanna fuck you till you're screaming that you hate me. And don't try to run when those thighs get to shaking. Gross! I don't need to know why Chris Brown keeps emphasizing that he should be feared and hated as a sexual partner. Freudian slips, perhaps. But truthfully, my standard for bad Chris Brown songs is honestly considerably lower. This is plenty bad, but I'm not sure I put it at a wet the bed level of terrible, even if some of the references leave it perilously close. Whereas, number 86, Rock Music by Charli XCX.
music.
There were few things that reified my lingering reticence towards Charli XCX that when she started her Substack, where the more I read her musings on art and fame, and well, firstly, given the entrenched fashy problem over there, it's not hard to find another newsletter platform. You don't need to use Substack. But the sad reality is that not everyone should have that written outlet, especially when it proves so thoroughly demystifying. For me, it proved that she can be just as insular, short-sighted, and petty as Taylor Swift, and the best possible decision was avoiding the bait with actual romantic, although I don't think making that mediocre Wuthering Heights soundtrack was remotely the move either. Hence why her announcement that the dance floor was dead and that she wanted to make rock music got the immediate eye roll out of me, trying to get ahead of when Beyonce's final album in that trilogy steamrollers all the competition, right? But then she actually dropped the single. And according to her, it was more of a piss take with some of her PC music friends like A.G. Cook. She never said she was making the rock album after all. She's just trolling. That's why the guitars are processed into slurry and the hook is that same quoted line. And apparently headbanging gives you neck pain and nobody should bother catching you if you're stage diving. So, okay, fine. It's a joke. But not only is it not particularly funny, the cheap gurgling mix sounds like something that would have dropped a decade ago on YouTube making fun of dance rock. It feels kind of revealing to me. A pointed jab at the music industry or intelligentsia that wants to move on to the next big thing and pegged her as the tastemaker. So she's feigning going back to something that to her wasn't all that good to begin with or didn't resonate, especially as she just wants to have fun and party. The problem is that I long ago stopped caring on what level of irony Charli XCX is even on, because it wants the same awkward double standard of this just being a goof-off lark, but also be taken seriously by the art kids who scorn Charli XCX, and that she's never really gotten over based on her own Substack remarks, where it feels like making fun of rock is like poking the bear. That white dude who wrote that asinine Jacobin article a week or so ago about rock music, and I'm sorry, there's no teeth to this. It's not just dated, it's embarrassing. Sometimes when the coke makes you brave, it makes you think pushing this was a good idea. And it's not worth caring about either way. Number 85, For the Moment by Chris Brown. The reason this Chris Brown song charted higher was the music video, not any discernible degree of quality, because yeesh, this sounds ugly. The dated late 2010s pop trap skitter, where Brown's auto-tune vocals that somehow find ways to get more nasal and obnoxious are smothered in even more whooshing effects, which leave every line with the sort of blurred over wispiness that might prompt AI comparisons if I wasn't certain that Chris Brown was way too involved with all of his projects. He does not get that non-out coming from me. Now, the actual content isn't really bad. He got dumped, he's now awash in the post-breakup hedonism of mixing the drugs with the alcohol and thinking the stripper's in love with him. But that's when it hit me. This sounds like The Weeknd, circa Heartless. Or rather, when Tory Lanez was trying to rip that off wholesale with far less lyrical personality, so yeah, 3 times a copy. If all Chris Brown wants is a moment with this song, he may have gotten that and nothing else. Skip it. And finally, number 60, Cinderella by Mac Miller featuring Dolla.
Man, I swear that parents just don't understand. You ain't gotta be old to be a man. Take my hand, come with me to my room. Girl, I got it sweet at the SLS. I already know you got expensive taste.
Oh, I had a sinking feeling about this one. It was only a matter of time before longtime Mac Miller fans started moving beyond his more accessible hangout vibes in his early rap career and more towards the jazzy R&B-esque experimentation of his mid to late 2010s work before he passed. And full disclosure, I just never got into that. It never clicked for me. But I never reviewed The Divine Feminine back in September of 2016, and maybe with the benefit of hindsight and a decade of time, this going viral would finally begin to work. Especially with Dahi backing up on the production, and look, sorry, I just don't know. The bass line against the delicate acoustic loop, that's nice. I like the hi-hat sounding so crisp, even if the snare sounds oddly crunchy, and the clapping beat switch feels a little bit dated, but not exactly in a bad way, as it opens up the guitar solo into this gentle piano piece for Mac Miller to croon over. And we'll get to that in a second, but the pairing of Ty Dolla $ign and Mac Miller, it makes sense, but I don't think the energy quite works. Ty Dolla $ign's way more aggressive to initiate the sexual encounter, and while Mac's verses are sexual, he's a little bit more sincere, sensual, borderline corny in some of his punchlines, where he is borderline credible by the second half of the song. When you remember he was dating Ariana Grande around this time, the whole "I'm in love with a Disney girl" Cinderella reference makes a little bit more sense, albeit if you remember her Dangerous Woman arc, only barely. But this is where you run into a make or break moment, that being Mac Miller as a performer, particularly a singer. He's never been my thing. His singing voice is weak, his rapping was only so-so. Even here he's got the dated, clunky hashtag bars, and while I grasp the fundamental appeal, the attempts at smoothness just never fully landed for me. While I appreciate the ambition of such a sprawling composition, at most I think it's decent, more a song I respect than I like. Just not for me. Yet even then, yeah, best of the week for Mac Miller and Ty Dolla $ign for Cinderella. What can I even say with this competition? Truthfully, I was sorely tempted to give the bottom spot to Charli XCX and rock music, but Honey Pack by Chris Brown is just fundamentally gross. I'll give her the escape, if only this time. But next week, it's gonna be the Drake Show, y'all. Brace yourselves for that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.